Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today I've got Arrowward's build for you. This is a Frostbite Druid human form build. Now this one's based on using Upheaval as one of your main damage sources, which a lot of people have been asking for, and this one works quite well. So Upheaval will be converted to cold, and it's going to have a lot of Frostbite both applied on hit, and a lot of Frostbite effectiveness thanks to a lot of freeze rate multiplier that you can get in a lot of different areas for the Druid. This one also has Maelstrom and a Spriggan pet, but the cool thing about it, you get to use Fury Leap as one of your movement skills. It'll also proc Upheaval when you use it. Upheaval itself is going to have quite high cast speed, and again, you can just hit things a couple of times and then move on. In the gameplay right now, this is only 100 corruption empowered content, so just the basic empowered, but you can see it just absolutely mows through it, no problem at all. Every time you freeze an enemy, you'll gain some ward. You'll be healing yourself back with a ton of healing that you get from both Maelstrom and from the Spriggan pet, so it has pretty good survivability, but the damage is also really good. On the training dummy, you can do up to 100k ticks with Frostbite, and that's with no exalted gear, no legendary items. So you can imagine that the cap for this is actually quite high. So let's go ahead and get into the skills, the interactions, and see just what he did. For skills, I'm running Fury Leap, Maelstrom, Upheaval, Spriggan the pet, and Warcry. For Fury Leap, we have this set up to give you increased damage. It's also going to give you increased attack speed, which is nice for Upheaval, and then also when you leap, it will proc an Upheaval, and it has a chance to do some lightning bolts as well, although the lightning damage isn't that much. So we've got 5 points in Warrior's Entrance, so you have 100% increased global damage for 3 seconds after lunging or after Fury Leaping. 3 points in Rage for 30% increased attack speed, which is a nice buff for another 3 seconds. 3 points in Panther Strike for increased damage and cooldown recovery, so you can use it more often. 4 points in Crater, 1 point in Lagan's Wrath for the lightning bolts that can be cast. It doesn't do very much damage again because we're not building into a lot of lightning or even elemental hit damage, but it is just something else that does a little bit for you. 1 point in Savage Impact, 2 points in Brutal Impact, and 1 point in Violent Upheaval so that it will do upheaval when you land with it, which is just another way to get it off, which is really nice. Then for Maelstrom, we're using this for haste, for frenzy, for lightning strikes, for a bunch of dodge, for healing. Basically, it's a huge buff to the build. So we've got 2 points in Turmoil, 2 points in Arctic Chill, 3 points in Healing Wind, so that for every stack, we get 6 flat healing every second. That's also increased by healing effectiveness. You can have 10 plus stacks, so you're getting 60 health per second. And then, of course, if you have healing effectiveness, that increases it. So 500% healing effectiveness would give you 360 health at 10 stacks per second, which is a ton of health, and it's a really nice healing. You stack that up with the Summon Spriggan healing aura that you have, and you get a lot of healing back per second. You don't need a whole lot of leech to keep your health full, not to mention every time you freeze an enemy, you will have some ward as well. We also have 4 points in Whirlpool, 3 points in Sleet Footed, so that you get 45 flat dodge for every stack, so that's a huge dodge for you. This is going to allow you to stack dodge quite a bit. You'll also be getting a lot of armor with this build thanks to Throne of Ambition, so you actually will be pretty tanky. We got 1 point in Power of the Storm, 1 point in Turbulence, 2 points in Calm, 1 point in Windswept. You'll almost always be at 6 plus stacks, so this will give you haste, and 1 point in Wind Fury so that you'll have Frenzy as well. So you'll be moving quite fast, and you're also going to have even more attack speed. So you can see you have a lot of attack speed from a lot of sources with this. Then we have Upheaval. As you can see on the tooltip, we're almost at 60,000 tooltip DPS, which is quite high for Upheaval. But we have 2 points in Terrain Delving, 4 points in Glacial Crash. This gives you 80% cold penetration because you will be holding a two-handed weapon, so it's doubled. 3 points in Primal Bulwark for Earth Armor. So the way Earth Armor works is every time you use Upheaval and hit an enemy, Earth Armor is going to give you a stack. You can have up to 3 stacks. Each stack is going to give you more endurance, and it's also going to give you more flat armor per point of attunement, which we've stacked a lot of. So getting these is what's going to help you, along with Throne of Ambition, giving you 10,000 plus armor, so you get to 70-80% DR that way. You'll be very, very tanky in this build once you've done a few hits. The problem is you have to do the few hits first, so you got to survive the initial contact with enemies. Now, the cool thing about this is also, if you ever fall below 6 stacks of Maelstrom, thanks to 1 point in Through the Muck and Clay, if you forget to use Warcry, or you don't manually cast any Maelstroms, or they haven't procced and you fall below 6, all these stacks of Earth Armor that you have can give you stacks of Maelstrom to keep you up above, or push you back up above 6, giving you time to use Warcry or get more stacks from somewhere else as you start to stack the Earth's armor again. We also have 3 points in Exhaustible for the mana cost reduction, 2 points in Maiming Rubble, 1 point in Ice Beaks to convert everything to cold in Frostbite and giving you a freeze chance with the skill, and 1 point in Mantle Strike, so it increases the base crit chance, but it's more of the fact that you want the cannot be dodged. This makes it to where you will always hit enemies with it. Then for Summon Spriggan, the pet, we are using this for, it'll do a little bit of Frostbite for you as well. It's also going to give you critical strike avoidance, it's going to heal you, and it has pretty good survivability. It doesn't die very often. I haven't had it die yet in Rhaegor Empowered content. We got 2 points in Arboreal Vitality, 1 point in Briar Summoner, 1 point in Branches of Winter to convert it to cold, and Frostbite chance. It also looks pretty cool. It actually turns the Spriggan form, or the Summon Spriggan, into an actual white Spriggan, which is pretty cool. 5 points in Frostleaf, giving it more freeze rate multiplier and aura freeze rate multiplier, which means that it'll actually grant you 200% increased Frostbite multiplier, or freeze rate multiplier, which then is converted to help your Frostbite effectiveness. 3 points in Aura of Life, 1 point in Aura of Loyalty, 1 point in Aura of Evasion, 2 points in Aura of Kingship, and then 4 points in Aura of Retribution to give you that base crit chance, but also that critical strike avoidance, so that you're capped down on that with very easy gear, or you can just get the blessing in between that and this, you're done. And then for Warcry, we have this set up to give you a bunch of increased crit, to give you increased cold damage, to heal you, and to be applied every 5 seconds so that you can have all of that whenever you need it. We got 1 point in Staggering War, 1 point in Kinetic Scream, 2 points in Shredding Howl, 1 point in Shallow Breath, 1 point in Juggernaut, 1 point in Breath of Edera, 1 point in Purging Shout, 4 points in Whirlpool, so that you'll get 4 stacks of Whirlpool every time you use it. This is what's going to make it very easy for you to stay above 6 stacks at all times. 1 point in Deep War, 1 point in Jumon's Wrath, 5 points in Frostclaw, and 1 point in Bringer of Winter. For passives, we got 26 points in the Primalist with 8 points in Natural Attunement, 8 points in Primal Strength, 5 points in Hunter's Restoration for all that extra life, and then 5 points in Berserker, so if you do go below 35% health, you will take 25% less damage and do 100% more melee damage, which is really nice. You don't get to low life a whole lot, but as you start to stack Corruption, eventually you'll go there a couple of times, but it's nice when you take that less damage, because between that and Endurance, you almost become invincible with all of the armor and dodge that you have. And then for Shaman, we have 22 points, 8 of them in Shamanic Infusion, 2 in Ancient Stones, 6 in Earthen Supremacy, 1 in Windbringer, and 5 in Hailbringer. And then for the Beastmaster, 22 points, a lot of it for damage reduction, 8 points in Ursane Strength, 5 points in Boarheart, 1 point in Ardor's Loyalty, 1 point of Call of the Pack, 5 points in Porcine Constitution, and 5 points in Primal Strength, so you have a very high chance to be able to proc the aspect of the boar all times when you're using Upheaval. And then for the Druid, the Master class, we have 40 points with 7 in Chitinous Plating, 5 in Thicket of Thorns, 7 in Druidic Prowess, 1 in Blessed Springs, 7 points in River Spirits, 3 in Wind in the Leaves, 8 points in Harmonious Wisdom, 1 point in Woodland Beings, and 1 point in Natural Duality. So for idols, uniques, and gear, there are some that you need. Obviously, using Mordita's Reach is going to be a big one for you. This is going to give you 500% chance to inflict Frostbite on melee hit. You can also get it with LP. Things you can get with that, attack speed is really good. You can get increased cold damage or elemental damage over time. Any of those things will be huge for it. But again, getting attack speed, especially tier 6 or tier 7, is going to be a huge benefit and allow you to stack a lot more Frostbite onto enemies. You can go with a Titan Heart. This gives you 15% less damage taken while wielding a two-handed weapon, which you are. So you get a lot of DR in this build, and then you also have that armor and dodge rating. That's why this build is very, very tanky. As for LP, you can go with Life, or you can try and get the Primalist specific rare class, where you have additional freeze rate multi on an enemy based on Chill, which increases the Frostbite damage. You also want the Shackles for the apply Frostbite on hit and the Frostbite duration, which is nice. This also gives you ward gain on freeze and gives you ward retention based on how much cold resist you have. And then we also have Snowdrift, which is going to be what gives you all that increased Frostbite effect based on your freeze rate multiplier. So those ones are some huge ones that all work together and you definitely want. As for the rest of the gear, you just want a bunch of elemental damage over time and as much freeze rate as you can get. Try and get your resistances in, and then also make sure sure to get as much health as you can. You can also go for healing effectiveness if you want to throw that on so that you get extra healing from both your Spriggan pet, from Warcry, and from the Maelstroms. And then for idols, the hybrid idols you really want is chance to apply Frostbite on hit with cold skills, and then also have increased cold damage on it. You also have increased lightning damage on these, which will make your lightning bolt hit just a little bit harder, but again, that's not a main source of the damage we're doing. And then a Throne of Ambition is huge for this build. This can give you up to 400% increased cold damage and armor against rares and bosses, which becomes very, very useful and will put your armor up to about 80% if you get to the max 20 stacks. So against bosses, you can become very, very tanky, and same thing with rares. For the character sheet, as you can see, we have just over 2200 health. We're capped on most resistances, but we do not have fully capped on poison, necrotic, or void, or fire. So again, with resistances or with blessings, you should be able to cap those out. Or if you want, you can always seal your gear or get exalted resistances, which will definitely get you to the cap much easier. But again, you still have super high survivability. Now, just standing here, you can see we have 33% armor. That armor is going to go up both when you use Upheaval and get the Earth armor stacks, and it's going to go up when you get the Throne of Ambition stacks. You can easily get to about 10,000 flat armor, putting you at about 70% DR, which is huge for the build. Dodge rating is only at 10%, but again, as you can see, if I use Warcry here, you can see how we can stack it up quite a bit. You're going to get to about 30% dodge, and if you put some increased dodge rating on gear, you can actually get yourself to about 50%, depending on how you do it. You could seal on some affixes or getting exalted and just have enough dodge rating to dodge half of the time. So you can build into that, build into the armor, and it becomes even more tanky. For damages, you can see we have 160% lightning for those strikes, and then for cold damage about 200%, but again, that's going to climb a ton. As you get the Throne of Ambition stacks, you can get over 600% total. And then for defense, you can see we're capped on endurance and we're capped on critical strike avoidance, a lot of that thanks to our Spriggan pet. And then for how to play the build, all you do is run around. You can use Warcry to make sure that you get to the normal amount of stacks that you need. You can leap in to have an Upheaval go off, Warcry again to get you up above those stacks, and then you can just sit here and spam Upheaval as much as you can. What's nice about this is it's going to do a ton of damage, and the more attack speed you have, the more damage it will do. But as you can see with us just attacking here like this, we're getting to about 50k ticks for Frostbite with none of our exalted gear. As you get more attack speed, or if you were able to put attack speed, especially tier 6 or tier 7 onto the Mordida's Reach, the Mordida's Reach will attack, almost twice as fast, and it's going to allow you to get to about 100,000 damage ticks. For how to level this build, you can level up with Upheaval. Again, it's not going to come together great until you have the shackles and the snowdrift on it, but once you have Mordida's Reach later in the game as well, it really gives it a boost. But you can level up with Upheaval totems. We've done it on the Shaman. You can definitely do it on the Druid as well, and then just depend a little bit more on your Spriggan for damage, and Upheaval will probably not feel as good until you get into a lot of that Frostbite effect, so it'll come together late game, but it is possible to level up that way. You could even do Upheaval totems if you wanted until you get to that point. There will be a leveling guide for Druid in the description below so that you can get going with it in a different way and then transition to this later. But that's going to be it for this guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, stay safe and enjoy some gameplay.